Welcome to the Situation Room. I am Alexis Kubicki. He is
Derek Kubicki, and welcome to another edition, as you said, of the Situation Room. How are you, Alexis?
I'm doing great like always. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So today we will continue with another with our series explaining and bringing the world of professional boxing a little bit closer to the perhaps not an everyday boxing fan, and letting you know as to what is it about. So last time, what did we ended with?
Promoters.
We talked about promoters. We
Talked about the fighter a little bit.
So we basically got to the point where the fighter is there. They assembled the team, they got the equipment, they made that big decision of becoming a professional fighter, and now what?
What?
Exactly, not a easy thing to do. So now I guess the fighter speaks to the promoter, or if they're not signed under a promoter's banner.
Well, I wouldn't say too much the fighter speaks to the promoter. I would say more like the manager.
Correctly, because we talked about the fighter acquiring management services. So I guess the fighter instructs the manager, saying,
because the fighter does the work in the square, which is their office.
That's
which
correct.
Is the ring.
That's right. And the managers, of course, have to do
the fun part.
That's
the negotiations. Yes.
So the manager has been instructed to find the opportunity for the fighter to fight. So the manager goes to work, starts making phone calls here, there, preferably. This is the beginning of the professional career, so they're trying to look for a fight taking place locally.
Yes.
And if it's not taking place locally, then as close to home as possible.
Yes. So the manager starts looking for the fighter for me, for example, right?
Then, for the opponent, you mean?
Yes.
Right.
So they're going back and forth. Then you go to your promoter and you say, "Okay, we want to fight with this opponent." The promoter says yes or no, and then it goes into negotiation about the purse, because the fighter's not going to fight for free. We're in the professional game now.
Right.
So that's where it goes back and forth with the promoter and the managers, both managers, the opponent and the fighter, the hometown fighter.
Right.
So the fighter and the manager keep going back and forth. Then if they agree to amount, they agree to amount. But who pays for it? If you don't have a promoter, for example, I would have to pay for it because I don't have a promoter.
So the very fighter that is on the very beginning of their own career gonna pay someone to hit them in the face.
Correct.
Imagine, folks, you paying someone to hit you in the face. But that is the truth. You are on the beginning of your career. You don't have a big fan base. You don't have a big following. You don't have sponsors. Now you want to get your career off the ground.
This is only if you don't have a promoter.
Correct. However, even though you will have this first fight, this financing of your own career doesn't end on the first fight, because it takes time to build your presence in the world of professional boxing.
It can take even up to 10 fights.
That's correct. And usually, if you don't start off with with being signed with the promoter, then the promoters wait to see. They don't necessarily jump in after 3 or 4 fights to see if they should sign you. So they wait, however long they decide to wait, and then if you happen to prove yourself over time, and let's say you have 7, 8, 9, however many fights, they usually wait that at least 7, 8, 9 fights. And if they see something,
but it's not just about the talents. Also, if you bring in people to the fights,
we'll get to that in a minute. But so they want to see if the goods are real, if there is something. So imagine for 7, 8, 9 fights, you paying someone to hit you in the face. You paying for your.
There's your medicals.
There's the medicals. What else are you paying for? You're paying for your entire training camp.
Yep, entire training camp. Sometimes you have to pay for your fighters' expenses. So for them if they have to come from a different city or a different country, you got to pay for that.
So you're not only paying your opponent's purse, but you're paying their entire travel expenses.
Correct. And accommodations.
Accommodations and food when they get here. They're not going to come by themselves.
No.
So they're going to come with a trainer.
Cutman,
sometimes cutman. So
sometimes manager.
Correct, but at that level you try to minimize the expenses. But nevertheless, you're paying for their purse,
yes.
You're paying for their travel expenses, accommodations, food, and what else?
Sometimes you got to pay for their medicals.
Occasionally it may happen. It may happen because they may say, look, I would like to fight you, but I don't have the money to to have the medicals done. Correct. Or they say, well, I don't have enough time to do this, whatever. They're gonna may give you any reason to shift the responsibility on you, yes, because it is you who had reached out to them to make the proposal to fight them. So they very quickly realize that you need them more than they need you.
That's why as fighters, we try to get as many sponsors as possible because we don't want to be paying out of our own pocket.
Right. And of course, that adds another responsibility to the fighter, yes, because
lots of stress. Don't forget about that stress because you're training. You got to put your money up forward. You got to do all this, and then you're going back and forth, and you still don't know exactly if they're going to take the fight until they sign that contract.
Exactly. But what I wanted to say is that this adds another responsibility to the fighter, and that's where the role of manager comes in, because their role to assist the fighter acquiring sponsorship falls on them as well. Yes. Not solely, but it is part of their responsibility to create financial support for the fighter. But nevertheless, it very quickly, any 4-round, and which usually is the on the beginning of their career, the fighters fight 4 rounds. That's what they start. It can very quickly become, unless it is a local fight, which means within the same city, which hardly ever happens, but it is easily $4,000 or $5,000 per position.
Yep, easily
for a 12-minute, just your professional debut. Now, this is just the cost associated to the fight itself. We're not talking about the cost that you had acquired, training, preparing, the cost of your training camp. Yep. So, as you can see, folks, being a professional fighter, it is. Some people think that boxing is not a very expensive sport, because you need a pair of gloves, you need a bag, and you can just start punching and do a few push-ups and sit-ups and just
be able to last rounds
and trying to land the punch. But unfortunately, boxing is a very, very expensive sport.
It is,
because there's so many factors which we just brought to light for you that come to play to make the fight happen. Now, not only there is the financial responsibilities that play a big role, but imagine this: you have done everything. Now, in order for the fight to happen, now you signed the contract, you paid for the flights, you agreed to the purse. This is the moment for your professional debut. The day it's coming. Now, there is another million reasons, well, maybe not million, but number of reasons that the fight may still not happen. So let's say your opponent 2 days, 3 days, 4 days before the fight calls in and says, or sends an email or a message and says, look, unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the fight because I got injured, or I got sick. I got a cold. Fight is canceled. Or they're already on their way. They're flying, and for some reason they forgot to mention to you that they have some bad past with the law, and they cannot get into the country. And at the border they're being turned around, and they're not let into the country. Fight is off. So this is where the saying comes from: until you literally are in the ring.
Yes, because don't forget, there's also, even if they show up, you still got to step on the scale.
They have to make the weight.
They got to make the weight. And how many times you have that problem that they don't make the weight? So, for example, if the home fighter makes the weight, the opponent does not make the weight, they can make a decision. Are we still fighting? Are we not fighting? Do the opponent lose some of their purse money? yes or no. But
That's very interesting, and we should talk about this. So let's say the fight is contracted at middleweight at 160 pounds. So obviously both fighters have to weigh 160 pounds or less,
yes,
but no more. Now you come into the fight, you weigh, as you agreed, 160 pounds.
Mhm.
Now your opponent comes and weighs 164 pounds.
Yep.
Two possibilities: either the fight is off, but wait a minute, you just paid for everything.
exactly.
The opponent has nothing to lose. They haven't
Mhm.
invested
Yep.
nothing into the fight. You have covered all the financial expenses. This is your professional
Mhm.
debut. This is the moment you have been waiting for. Are you gonna pull out over 3 or 4 pounds?
So there's few options actually they can do this. So they have the commission usually gives about 2 hours for you to cut that weight.
Right, to make the limit,
Yeah.
right? So
And
yes.
so they try that. Some opponents say yes, they're gonna try it. Some say no. So the ones that try it, they try to get to 160. Okay, say for example they lost 2 pounds and they had to lose 4.
Mhm.
They still didn't make weight, obviously. So now it comes down to the fighter, the main fighter, to make the decision. Are
Let's
they
call
gonna
him a home fighter.
the home
one,
fighter
yeah.
if they're gonna take that fight or not? Because you don't want to lose that opportunity, like you said, all that money that you put forward,
All the training,
all the
the build up,
yes, and bringing the fans in, and say it's your debut. You really want to get in there. You want to show everyone. You want to have that experience.
right.
So you got to take that fight, or you're not going to take the fight, and you just lost everything that you put in.
But now you deciding to take the fight because of all the reasons that you just mentioned.
And it's another risk taker because that opponent the next day is going to come even much heavier.
That's right, because they're gonna rehydrate.
Yes.
So they're probably gonna come in, if the fight was at 160, they're weighing, let's say 163 or 2. So the next day, in other words, you are taking the risk that you're gonna fight a much bigger fighter
Yes.
than yourself.
Yep.
Which is,
even though you still rehydrate, but they're gonna rehydrate even more because they didn't make that weight. So that means that they were struggling.
That's right. So on top of all of the stress, all of the financial, now you find yourself in a situation where you know you're going into the fight knowing that you're gonna fight a bigger fighter than yourself.
Yes.
So, but before that happens, so the fighter didn't make weight. They tried to do it. They dropped a couple of pounds. Usually in a contracts there should be, that's a role of the manager.
Yes.
There should be a clause that says that if the fight is not made, then
you lose some of your purse.
So in other words, the money that was paid to your opponent,
yes.
part of it goes
to you.
Goes to you because they did not make
Correct.
weight. That still does not make up for the stress, knowing that you're gonna go and fight
it's not gonna satisfy you, right?
It's not gonna satisfy you, and you have to remember that the purses are very, very small. So it's not like that percentage. Usually it's about 20%, or in some cases it is agreed upon very specifically, which is something that we have done in your fights.
Yes.
That there is a financial penalty, so many dollars per each ounce, or so on and so forth.
Depends what the agreement is, right?
So now, with everything that we just described, everything is agreed upon, and the next day, of course, the fight happens. And hopefully, after everything that you've done, you are successful and you win the fight. Imagine if you don't. It's a disaster.
That's another story.
But that's boxing.
Yeah.
So this is, and of course, on the end of the day, you as the fighter who is on the beginning of their career, after you add all the expenses, you are in a minus column, because what you got paid for this fight is very symbolic. And of course, you spend way, way, way more than what you have made.
Yes.
But you have to understand something, that, and you will agree, you have been, in a pro boxing game for quite some time now. It can't not be about the money. I mean, you're going in, you dare to be great. And eventually, if someone goes into professional boxing and base their idea of being a professional fighter, what they initially see on TV, where this says that fighters make millions of dollars, that is a wrong motivation to be in a sport. You said number of times, you fight because you dare to be great.
Yep.
And
you have to love it. You're going in there because that's a sport that you love, you enjoy doing, and it's business.
And it is business, but professional boxing, more than any other sport, it is a business. Like sometimes it's a business first and sport second, but the initial motivation for the athletes cannot be purely financial. It can be very much secondary. Of course, the financial rewards may come later, but when we say later, we're talking much later in a career and after a number of fights. But first, initially, you have to withstand everything that will come at you during those initial fights, during the times that you will have fights that will not take place. Your opponents will pull out. You may get sick yourself. You may be the one that is not able to fight.
A lot.
So there's so many elements that may come, to play to derail your career that you have to go up against. It is extremely, extremely difficult path to choose as an athlete. And that is why I myself commend professional fighters who are able to carry on their career and being able to withstand everything what they go up against, and are able to continue and then eventually succeed. And I think that this is why all of us should be really cheering them on, because the work is tremendous. And we have to remember one more thing. Unlike any other professional sports, in professional boxing, and this is a very much of a key element, you only compete 2, 3, 4 times a year if you're lucky. So the amount of preparation versus the amount of times that you compete, it's very minimal. Unlike any other sports, hockey, basketball, all the other professional leagues, as we mentioned before, you compete every other day. Nobody remembers what happened last week. Never mind last week, on Monday or Tuesday, nobody remembers what happened on Friday. So the frequency, the preparation is ongoing, but the reward, which is the performance, it's immediate.
And when you think about it, actually, professional boxers put more training in than like a professional team.
Actually, the professional teams, they perform more than they train.
Yes, because like for us, we are training 2-3 times a day.
And perform 2-3 times a year.
Correct.
Where professional athletes, that is a great observation. I never thought about it.
Like look at the hours, not even minutes, the hours, the days of training that we put in, and just the, say, 30 minutes of that performance.
Yes. And then, of course, there is the regular life that is going on. Yep. So whether it's your professional career, whether it's your education, having all of this somehow align, being able to pay your bills, being able to put gas in your car to get to the gym, to get to work, to do this, to have some recovery work. All of this, if you want to be an athlete that is aspiring to perform at a certain level, with every fight you will gonna face a better, tougher competition. Yes. So, of course, you have to raise the level of your preparations. You have to have a better sparring, otherwise better recovery, better everything, because you are facing better opponents. Yes. So if you know that your opponents are better, your preparation has to be better. Yeah. Better means usually more expensive, more sacrifice in terms of the time that you put in, more work for the manager, doing research, finding out what will give you the edge, beating your next opponent.
And that happens fight after fight.
And that happens fight after fight. So, viewers, as you can see, I hope you are, if you had watched every part of our series, now you're starting to get very clear understanding of the world professional boxing. I think we're going to wrap it up for today. In the next part, we will talk about what happens after fight number 10, perhaps when a promoter takes a look at you, and we will talk about sanctioning bodies, organizations that build and give the fighter a platform to fight for eventually, hopefully, for a world title. But before you do that, there's levels that you have to compete at to get to the highest level.
Correct.
But with that being said, I think this is it for today. Alexis, just quickly, your preparation for your fight against
Yes.
Lara, as you can see it on the bottom here, is happening. The tickets available.
Yep, they're still available through me. Don't forget, you get your t-shirts if you buy a ticket from me. So May 9th.
What's happening with the t-shirts?
They're on their way. They're on their way. They'll be here this week.
You just spent like 2 hours on the phone, I think,
did.
trying to
But
find
they
it.
said this week that they'll be in. So when you get your ticket, you will have your shirt. So do not worry. They'll be there for fight night.
That's what we hope anyhow.
All right, then. Thank you very much. That is it for today's episode in the Situation Room. I am the fighter. He's the subscriber.
Thank you.